basement? Did it flood your basement? That was something else?
Good evening, everyone. Oop, I'm not sure if I'm on. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Amherst Traffic Safety Board. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. Our first order of business this evening is just introduction of who we have here tonight. My name is Eric Fraz. I am chairman, and we will go down the line here of our other members.
Jennifer McNevich, member.
Mark Storch, member.
Maxwell Kahn, member.
Greg Dion, vice chair.
Dan Ryder, member.
Kevin Cantwell, member.
Ken Smith, member.
And we also have department liaisons with us this evening.
Chris Schregel, engineer, department, traffic safety coordinator.
Okay, so for those in the audience this evening, just so you are aware, should an alarm sound in the building, it's our first order of housekeeping business. Should an alarm sound in the building, the exits, emergency exits of the building are to my left, your right, out those doors, and then exit to the front or rear of the building. So everyone that is in attendance this evening, actually our first order of business this evening is to go through the minutes from the April meeting. With that being the next part of the meeting, any board members have any comments, concerns, changes, alterations? Please state them now. None being heard, is there a motion to approve?
Sure, I'll make it.
Motion by Kevin, is there a second?
Sure.
Second by Max. Any additional comments? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, 8-0 to approve the minutes. Okay, so for those in the audience this evening, the way we run the meetings is we do not follow the agenda. We actually go through the agenda in the order that people have been signed in. After we address the people that are signed in order to get you on your way, we will then go through the order of the agenda for those items of people that are not in attendance this evening. For those that are in attendance as well, so you are aware, this is a volunteer board. We are not a law-making authority. We are an advisory board to the town board. So anything that we do here on this board will go as a recommendation to the town board. Will be forwarded over to Councilmember Zucala, who will then make the motions before the town board for any resolutions or town laws, codes, anything that need to be changed. If the information that comes before us is something that can be handled by the individual department liaisons that are here, that doesn't require town board action, those liaisons are here and they will deal with it accordingly within their departments based on the recommendations from this meeting. As we go through your agenda item this evening, we will let you know and advise what the next steps in the process will be, so that you are aware. So we'll let you know of that as well. For those who are wishing to speak this evening, we ask when you come up that you come up to the podium and speak into the microphone. The meeting is being recorded and streamed, so that way anybody watching it or whatever can hear what you are saying as well. And then it's also all recorded for the minutes that we have to approve at next month's meeting, so we have all of your information. With that, we will grant you 3 minutes to speak as part of the public comment period. With about after about 2.5 minutes, we'll give you a single bell warning, let you know you got about 30 seconds left, and then we'll give you a double bell after that. Once the public comment section closes, we'll open up the conversation here to the board for discussion. Should we have any additional questions of you or anything as we're having the discussion, we will ask those questions of you in order to help us as we're going through. So with that, our first order of business this evening is actually item number 1 on the agenda, since that's the first person signed in, which is Mughal Road for bike lane, sidewalk, and proper shoulder. So we'll give this to Chris at this point to give us additional background information. One other comment to make beforehand, any correspondence that you did have with the town, all of us have received a copy of that, so when you come up to speak this evening, there's no reason to reiterate anything you've already written that we have a copy of. Okay, so with that, Chris, item number 1.
Thank you, Chairman. This first item is in reference to Mughal Road. Maureen reached out to the town via email a couple times, initially asking for sidewalks. She was then referred to the Sidewalk Technical Review Committee, where I believe she filled out the appropriate paperwork to request officially a sidewalk on Mughal Road. That meeting to discuss requests that have been compiling has not yet happened by that committee. So she was speaking with Pat Lucy, and Pat indicated that, potentially this could be a bigger project than just a sidewalk, maybe bike lanes. Thought it would be worthy to come before the Traffic Safety Board to see if a project like Casey Road could be put before the town board, or at least put on everyone's radar that this is might be a good candidate. So I put before you guys. And in terms of the road itself, Mughal Road is a local town road. I believe it's classified as a collector. I'd have to check that. It's pretty wide. It's 66 feet wide. It does not have sidewalks. You can kind of see a picture on the screen from street view of the geometry in terms of the available shoulders. Not much room for pedestrians. Looks like there's some passing lanes. In terms of accidents, this is actually a pretty safe street in the past 5 years. We do not have any accidents. I think there was one closer to transit a while ago, but in the past 3 years have been 0 accidents in this stretch. I do not have any counts or speed data.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So with that, we will open this up to public comment. Our first person signed in this evening is Maureen Shiplet, right? Shiplet? Yep, there's an
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having us here and allowing us to speak and hearing this request. And thank you to Chris for all he has done up until now. I just wanted to say I returned to this area after a 23-year hiatus. I was raised here just because it felt like the safest place to bring up my daughter. And my background, I'm a registered nurse and a pediatric nurse practitioner, so safety is always kind of first in mind. This does seem like a very safe, it's a 30-mile-per-hour road. However, there is quite a bit of pedestrian traffic and dog walkers, strollers, my daughter, her friends, riding bikes. I see teenagers going between Transit and Paradise quite often. And as you saw, just very little area. And also, when riding her bike, when we attempt to move over, she goes right off the little, like whatever you can call a curb, and onto the grass. So it's kind of cumbersome to weave in and off of the grass if you're on a bicycle. I sadly have seen firsthand the devastation of a pedestrian or a bicyclist versus an automobile accident, and not on our road, thank God. But this has a lot of blind spots you don't quite see from what we're seeing here, where there's a hill and you can't see, or a motorist, I know because I drive it every day, can't see, just what's over, yes, right there, yep. And it looks great from this view, but when you're driving, you can't see, nor can a pedestrian see what's coming right over that. So I just ask that you consider this, because it really is, I think, a very pedestrian-utilized area, and it could be a lot safer. Thank you. And I just want to mention my daughter here initiated this request. It started a couple years ago, and she did have a list of neighbors sign the petition when we submitted this original request a couple of years ago. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything else? Okay, thank you.
So is that Quinn that's not going to speak? Quinn, okay. Yep. Is there, right, there's 2 other individuals that are signed in this evening that did not put an item number. So is anyone else here to speak on this item this evening? None being heard, we'll close the public comment period and open up to the board for discussion.
I can take first on this one if you want.
I was going to say, just for reference as well, that was brought up, if people on the board are not aware, I'm assuming you are, that on the end of this street at Transit Road is also the East Amherst Fire company that's at the edge of the road, so I would assume that there is some higher speed traffic from the fire department at times on the road. That's an access road to that fire department.
I'll take first on this one. I live in the Wellington Woods area, so I quite literally drive down Mughal almost every day from transit for one reason or another. I'd say probably about once a week, if not more, there is someone walking on the side and you feel the need to go, if not over the middle line, to. You're 100% right. I have no complaints at all with the idea of doing whatever we can to widen it. It's even when you have adequate line of vision, there just isn't room to do it, particularly when winter is around and there's snow on the side of the road. If someone's walking, I mean, they're not just going to jump into this snow. So,
I would say I myself am familiar with it as well. I live over in that area as well, and I'll often actually ride my bike up there to cut up to the Clarence bike path over there. So I'm familiar with the area, familiar with the bumps in the road, the narrowness of the road, and not that it would help with a bike, but that's why I did see in your notes that there was a suggestion of more of a bike lane or walking lane widening the shoulder of the road rather than a sidewalk, which I would probably support that as well. Sure.
Quite a few months ago, Chris tasked us, or the planning department, I think, to figure out which roads we thought would be appropriate to have bike lanes on. Was this part of that, or are there any connecting roads nearby that we, if it wasn't part of it, that we could connect this to?
Well, I would say if the project on Casey Road is completed to extend the bike lane there on Casey up to transit, then you probably wouldn't need to hear. I would say this would be more on one side of a walking pedestrian, a wide shoulder or something of that. I would support the addition of the sidewalk to the street, looking at the street itself, the configuration of it, what's there, utilities, everything else. A sidewalk may not be possible.
yeah.
But adding a 3-foot shoulder on the side where the golf course is something that maybe could easily be done. So there'd have to be engineering involved as to what can be done there.
Yeah, the only concern I would have with engineering, and this is just a feasibility thing, is when we think of what they've had to put in for Brompton, there is the elevation change on this. I don't think it's as severe as that, and I've got no idea without looking at an engineering report of how much money it would cost or anything like that. But whatever we can do, I'm totally all for.
Chris, could you put the photograph back up again that shows the fence? No,
Street view?
yeah, the street view that shows the country club's fence.
I would think that that's the side you would do it on, because
Yeah.
it doesn't have utilities.
Well, I think you have to.
Is that fence on the right-of-way line?
I don't know.
I believe it is.
My God, that's 20 feet in there.
Yeah, so it's 66 feet wide road, so you're probably looking at the right-of-way line there, and that's how wide that area is.
But that road, but if you haven't driven down the road, I would say that the fence is not even with the road. That picture
It's lower.
doesn't show it.
It's
There's
lower.
a slope coming down from the road
Right.
to the fence.
Well, yeah, fill it.
You have to fill it.
Yeah.
Now,
Hold on, I'm going to bring up the right-of-way line.
my second question, Chris, is what's in that right-of-way? Gas line, water line, sewer line, or nothing?
That's the right-of-way line.
Lord.
I hope nothing.
Well, I don't have the utility maps with me, but I can just tell you the surface information is what you see. You've got hydrants on the north side, you've got utility poles on the north side, you have some fairly decent trees on the north
The gas
side, no
line, you can
roadside ditches.
You can see the gas lines right there.
Yeah. And the houses are all on the
rough.
north side.
I would think the north side would be the side you don't want to do anything.
It looks potentially here that you could put a bike lane in here, sidewalk, or whatever you wanted. You got plenty of room in here. Yeah, you got to put some fill in here, maybe some pipe, but we don't find this on any roads in Amherst, this situation. This is very good.
It's sweet. It's sweet for something like this.
If we add bike lanes, we would have to add them on both sides of the road.
Correct.
And just based on the feedback that we've gotten, it sounds like the user would be of a younger age who might not be comfortable riding right on the shoulder. So I would be in support of putting in like a wide, multi-use path on just the one side that could be used by both pedestrians and bicyclists. And then you don't have to put it on both sides of the road. And it would be offset, more of a comfort level, and then it wouldn't matter if the grade is slightly below the roadway grade.
And the other option being, I don't know, I'm trying to think of how recently this one was repaved, but if you really wanted to, if you just widened the road, you could always just move the road over to fit the space. So you could have bike lanes on both sides, move where the line is to the middle then, and then problem solved.
I like Jennifer's idea. One question I have is there a sufficient width for a multi-use path like that on that entire southern portion of the road? Yeah?
On the southern? I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
that's the south side, right?
The south side's on your right, so the country club side.
Yeah, there's
Looks like there's sufficient, yeah.
20 feet there.
For the entire duration.
I did not,
Yeah.
Tom, do you have something to say back there? Oh. You look like you were leaning forward to talk.
Is there any grant money for something like this?
well, we just applied and won the grant funding for extension of Casey Road. So, you know, those come around every couple of years, is it, Jennifer, the TAP CMAC? So we'd have to wait for another round to become available. But yeah, here's where you'd get into a little trouble with,
And
probably have to
then,
replace that sidewalk.
well,
So it, yeah,
no, I was just gonna say, and then the question becomes, since it runs up to Paradise, is there a way to connect something towards the high school? I don't know, just if we're talking about adding,
so this is the sidewalk map. It does not have pathways. And yeah, to your point, here's Casey. This Casey will be completed on the north side from Paradise all the way to Transit. I'm sorry, it moves to the south side.
that's Casey, yeah.
That's Casey, yep. So that will be connected, then it, you know, connects via Transit. There's nothing in the works for Paradise. We did do this connection as part of a Safe Routes to Schools as well as Klein Road more than a decade ago. But yeah, there's nothing to continue on Paradise.
Is that the, where's the peanut line through?
Peanut line
right
runs
there.
right here.
No, I'm just saying it would be logical, obviously one step at a time. If we can do something from Yugo, great. But logically, if you can connect something that's, you know,
I've-
literally 3 blocks over from the high school to the high school, when you're adding a bike lane already, just some form of path for somewhere to go to
Yeah,
makes
I was going
sense.
to actually add to that. Chris, can you pull up the map view and go to Paradise?
Yeah, before I do that, I forgot to mention, Paradise will also get a sidewalk going from Casey down to the Peanut Line. Actually it connects to the Red Wing residential. It's either going to go internal into the park or along the Paradise edge.
Because that's where I was going to go. I was going to say, would it be,
That's part of the Casey project.
if you could go back to Paradise, if we were to, nope, you're going the wrong way.
Am I
You're on
backwards?
Transit.
No, I'm lost.
Just find the golf course, that's the
Find the golf
easiest
course.
way.
There you go.
Casey, here
There's
we
the golf
go.
course. I was just wanting to see how difficult it would be if you run that line there and you're going to run a sidewalk or connect somehow to about where the peanut line would be. How difficult would it be to do something on Paradise from Yugo back to Casey
Right.
to the Paradise Park in that stretch?
Yeah, that would be a
Connect
good
that.
connection. You know, if we were to do this year or next year, just continue it down to Mughal to Transit.
Yugo Transit, right. So I'll just make the motion here that this board is in support of the town finding a way to install sidewalks on Newgle Road or a pathway. And we would refer that to the engineering department for design possibilities based on the configuration of the road But that, again, would still have to go to other committees within the town to find funding for it and other sources. But, so I just make the motion, the Traffic Safety Board is in support of work being done to determine if configuration could be done of a sidewalk or pathway on Mughal Road for pedestrian and bicycle safety.
I second it.
Shared pathway?
Would it be pavement or would it be like blacktop?
I would refer that to engineering based on feasibility.
What, I gotta get on mic.
Oh, I'm just wondering whether we'd use blacktop or pavement. But I'm thinking blacktop would be probably easiest, best.
Yeah,
Engineering question.
That's where I would say, we're not the experts in that. We would just support the motion. We believe it's in the best interest from a traffic safety, pedestrian safety
And
aspect to go to engineering for design.
And while engineering is designing it, time will elapse and some grant money will become available, perhaps, in a couple of years.
That perhaps, or it's something, there's other stuff with the sidewalk committee where right, Chris, if the sidewalk committee installed it, that's stuff that would be passed to the property owners that it abuts to, if it's sidewalk.
So we would have to do some sort of public outreach. Quinn, I know you went door to door. I don't know if you got any negative responses, but a lot of times in these rural areas, people sometimes don't want sidewalks. So we would do like a canvassing with a website and a mail out to say, are you in support? We get a better idea before we would move forward with a project like this. And a lot of times those federal aid funds require public support as part of the application. So that is an early step, and it kind of gives the town board a flavor if, residents want it or do not want it.
And
Oh, okay. So just looking at it, I don't want to speak for the planners, but, if you were to pick a side, you'd want to connect to all these cul-de-sacs. The north side would make the most sense. It looks like you've got, we try to avoid any type of rear lot situations where people can't maintain the sidewalk. If it's adjacent to all the frontages like it is, those individuals would be responsible to maintain that sidewalk. If it's adjacent to the country club would have to be responsible to maintain that and remove snow.
If they even own the land still.
If it becomes a multi-use, I don't have an answer. Building, do we know who's responsible for a multi-use clearing per building code?
I guess that would be up to the town and them to decide on.
Yeah. But that's good input, thank you. That would be on the survey, north or south side, along with the generic comment section.
So Chris, would you recommend that be sent by the town as the next step to gauge?
Yeah, I'd have to
Before we
speak
send
to
it to engineering?
Kim over at the planning department to see how she would like to proceed, but we just did this on New Road a couple weeks ago. So we're very familiar with how to do it, and we've got everything that we need to duplicate that effort.
So you'd recommend doing that prior to sending anything to engineering for design
I
and
mean,
feasibility?
No, you can refer to engineering, and then engineering would then take that on.
Okay. So the motion is to refer to engineering for design feasibility and for Chris and his department to send out the surveys to the residents on the street to gauge the level of interest on the project. All in favor?
Aye.
Did you need a second for that motion?
Okay, so a motion by me, second by Kevin. Any further discussion? No, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. 8-0.
All right.
Okay, so that's where that item will be left at this point. They'll survey and go to engineering, and then it'll be handled through the individual departments. Obviously, a funding source would need to be found if it was deemed feasible, and that would then probably move to Councilmember Zakala as well if it was something that there wasn't grant money for capital funding projects and other sorts that they do as council members and leaders of the town with budgeting purposes. You're welcome. So the next item on the agenda that we have someone signed in for this evening is item A of old business, Campus Drive and Damon University.
Eric, we might have to close old or new business. Did we not do that?
We
That's
normally
true.
have more.
Is it-
We'll go with that to see if anybody-
Fascinating.
and then close it.
New fascinating.
So, how many,
What a time to be alive.
Greg is here, right? And who else is here for campus? Campus? Anybody? Okay,
Is
just you,
anyone else
Greg?
here for Campus Drive?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so a little bit of background. This is an old item, old business item, where the Campus Drive folks reached out to the town indicating that there were wrong way travel on Campus Drive adjacent to Damon University, where Damon students were turning down the wrong way out of this parking lot and in a couple parking lots and taking kind of a shortcut instead of going totally around on the one-way orientation. Instead, they'd go north until they hit the two-way section to head to Sheridan. This board reviewed it without Damon present because they were unavailable to attend that meeting. We had one resident speak on behalf of campus. Ultimately, the couple options were talked about, one being possibly taking the existing width and converting it to two-way travel. The resident who was present said he would not be in favor of that action, didn't think his neighbors would be in favor of that action, so ultimately that was tabled. Another idea was to introduce parking on both sides of the street. Currently, it is allowed on the west side and not on the east. The resident was going to go back and figure out if there's consensus from the group to see if that should move forward. I did not hear from that resident. I was hoping he'd be here today. And then ultimately, we asked that Damon provide input at a future meeting, that's tonight, specific to maybe changing the orientation of this parking lot to make it a right-in, right-out, to physically alter it to discourage illegal lefts out of that curb cut. Damon early on responded that they would do their best to implement a sign plan. Let me pull that up. So this is what Damon came back with. Oh, nope, not that one. Where they said that they could help out. So they would do a no left immediately across from that lot, a no right coming out of this lot, and a no left coming out of, actually, that's supposed to be a no right, isn't it? Yeah, we figured out that Greg, is supposed to be a no right. And then on top of that, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but you guys made some recommendations specific to Eaton and campus, where you asked the highway department to make some changes out here, as well as fix a sign that is partially knocked down. Highway has done that, and that work is complete. With that, I'll turn it, oh, I'm sorry, there's a concept. So you guys also asked that I prepare a concept for Damon Lot E, specific to that right-in, right-out. And here it is. And so we think there's sufficient width, at least for a typical, passenger vehicle to navigate this right-in, right-out curbed, probably a mountable curbed island. Again, trying to force the people to take a right. With that, I'll pass it over to you guys.
And Greg, did you wish to speak or say anything this evening? Yep, come on up. We'll open public comment.
I'll be relatively brief. Thank you all so much, and Chris, thank you for the summary and for allowing me to delay this a couple of months as we weren't able to make the other meetings. So Damon prides itself on being a good neighbor. As soon as we got the complaint, we did respond with those things. Those signs that we shared earlier are now permanently installed. We actually had a digital sign that we put up immediately that was temporary, and we have moved that to signify the turnout. From Damon's perspective, we do have concerns with building the build out or the funnel, for lack of a better term, directing people to one way or the other, mainly for snowplow purposes. It's just an extra cost and a burden for us that we don't really feel like we should have to do. The road, from our perspective, is more than wide enough to be two ways. I will be completely honest. I have made the mistake before also. I'm sorry, officer. It was an honest mistake. I apologize. But I've made that mistake before also. And so the signage, I think, will help considerably with that. But we don't understand why actually it's one way either. I also recognize that if you all changed it to two-way, that it would probably upset the neighbors more than anything else, which is not really our goal. So I don't know that there's a great solution, but we do think that the signage will help dramatically. And since we've installed it and we've communicated with those neighbors, we haven't heard additional concerns. That doesn't mean that there aren't any. That just means that we haven't heard from them. So thank you.
Okay. I will open it up to those here on the board for any further comments, concerns, questions.
For me, I feel pretty comfortable with the signage additions, and I feel like we should take a wait and see and evaluate if there are any more complaints since we put the signage in personally. Not opposed to the, the right in, right out concept only, but if there's, it seems like there's at least minor pushback from Damon on that concept, I'd be opposed to at least pursuing that at this particular moment until we, unless we get more complaints on people driving the wrong way.
If we're going to go, if we're going to rely on the signs, we need some time to make sure the signs are doing the job. 1 month isn't enough.
And yeah, I'm totally okay with the wait and see plan as well, but I do want to bring up the point that as opposed to just the pure concern that people had misunderstandings, I think we're all under the same opinion that people are very well aware of how the roads work, and they were intentionally doing it because it's faster. And the entire idea of the pork chop in there was to physically stop them from doing that. So if the signs work, great, but the entire reason we suggested that was just because we thought that signage alone wasn't going to be sufficient in and of itself.
Out there is also, it's going to be an unpopular suggestion, but the suggestion is still out there to make this into the two-way road that one would almost say was designed for. It's wide enough. Why did they make it a one-way road?
I will just say that I think I've said in other meetings as well that I would be in support of making it a two-way road. The residents are in opposition.
Well, we
based
don't know.
on the width of the road.
We really don't know if the residents are in opposition because one resident was here and spoke to the issue, but what about everybody else? He seemed to speak for everybody else without any, where were they? Where is the petition?
We just know from, this street has come before us multiple times, and there is always opposition to making it into a two-way street because that is always the recommendation of this board. The resident himself that was here at that meeting was opposed to it. He had support of other people that, if you surveyed the area, we could send a survey to all those on the street. I think there's a lot of apartments in that area, so we probably wouldn't get that great of a response from the building owners themselves. It's sure.
I think one struggle in drafting obviously there are concerns there. I do think one of the challenges with being pull up and turn around in our view makes a situation that so again, Damon is support whatever is actually the opposite way. I do struggle with that. There is why
Chris, you're pulling up that spot, which is the concern that comes up.
Right there with the arrow is not necessarily the same.
There's other Y configuration roads that exist that way in the world, that are two-way.
How many
There's that small area
driveways
by
how many
Dan
driveways
Fry.
butt out onto that road?
Hmm?
How many driveways butt out onto that? I think, aren't there just like outlets for like apartments? It's not like there's a driveway.
Down at the Y, close to the Y, it's single,
Yeah, they're down below the Y, become single families.
and that eventually it transitions. So,
You trying to draw a stop sign?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna draw. Oh, yeah, your favorite roundabout.
Oh, now we're talking. Roundabout.
Roundabout.
traffic moves pretty fast through there.
We just have to figure out something here.
Property, we'll be giving up property to make that possible. Obviously, there's some grass there. Is that owned by the town or is that owned by some private individual?
Chris, we'll find out where the right-of-way is.
I guess it's the landlord.
It's pretty wide. That's all town.
What
So
about
here's the
other side,
right-of-way
Chris?
line.
What about the other Y, Chris?
Oh, the other way?
Yeah.
That one's a little more narrow, I think.
Yeah, and it's a weird angle.
That you could almost reconfigure and try to turn into a T.
Yeah, you could try to make that a 90.
Just chop that end of the road.
Yeah.
But,
But again, I think incremental approach and also, try to reach out back out to that community group to see if they're completely opposed to a two-way.
Would we have two-way with parking on one side?
Yes.
Yeah, you couldn't fit two.
Because that would serve
I mean,
the
that would be the other response to this as well, is to, the one side of the street actually still has a parking restriction on it. Would be to, ironically, the residents, last time we discussed this, we suggested removing the parking restriction on one side to allow parking on both sides of the street, which would choke the street down, but the concern was that when people purposely choose to go the wrong way, then they would be stuck. So it would achieve its purpose, though. It wouldn't give you the option to go the wrong way on the road.
I was curious when you said that because I've never heard anyone else say, well, no parking on the street. Honestly, I'd be a little more concerned about that briefly. And that makes it counter to the institution having no parking. But we can take care of that on our campus because very large. It's part of that street. And I think it would create more parking spots. And narrow it down to people that get again, whatever that was.
Okay, so I believe the consensus of the board is to take the approach of continuing to wait and see on signage and see if this comes back before us.
And
Again.
I think
Got a
we should
problem
wait
with
until the fall after the next semester starts.
No opposition there, but Dan?
Yeah.
Chris, we have the issue of a private sign, non-standard private sign on the town right-of-way here. As I showed you before.
Yeah, let me, can you put it right here? No, right here.
So somebody put that black sign up there?
So David's plan calls for private signage, and I haven't been out there, Greg, and you know, when you do private signage, you can make them any color you want and put any symbols you want. But to Member Dan Ryder's point, if it's placed in the right-of-way, it has to conform to the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So I don't know exactly where this is shown, but it's pretty close to the one-way sign. My
It's-
suspicion is that it's in the right-of-way and therefore non-compliant. So if we could just jump right to the chase and put it on private property, then you're fine.
Okay, I don't like to raise problems without having a solution. Why don't we
Move it
take that
back
private
2
sign
feet.
and put it where you want the pork chop? Put it on Damon's property.
I think I think the easier solution very well may be just move it back 4 feet.
But if you put it if you put it in the middle of the driveway where the pork chop is, it's just going to be a sign in the middle of the
Yeah.
driveway. You'd have to have some kind of
Yeah, if it's,
curbing or protection around the base of it.
yeah,
You'd have
there's,
to put it on the pork chop.
this is a don't make, this is a don't make a mountain out of a molehill situation. They did something that was good.
Right.
Let's just move it back like 4 feet.
Yeah,
So it's out of the way, right
But
away.
Put it on
and
Damon's
be
property.
Done with it.
So then they can deal with maintenance issues on it.
So,
That's no problem at all. And we were very intentional with using our branding on the campus because we wanted the students to know that the university is telling them it's appropriate, so when I have to go to council,
yeah,
it's not a problem.
so Greg, a good indication is likely it's 1 foot off the backside of the sidewalk. So anywhere in here would work, anywhere in here, or anywhere, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but backside of that sidewalk.
Our concern with the front, the first two you showed was that people would pass it. They would
Yeah.
pass it before they would see it. So we did put thought into it before we put it there, but clearly in the wrong spot. So before we move it, Chris, I'll review with you, make sure that.
Sure.
No, what I'm saying is put it right where, forget the pork chop for a minute. Put it right where the pork chop is going to be, but put it on Damon's property.
So in the middle of the pavement then?
Yes.
No, that's,
It's not protected then.
Yeah, we can't put a sign in the middle of the road without concrete.
Come up, Damon can come up with some kind of protection. It's not going to be on their property. It's their sign, it's going to be on their property.
But the protection would be to put the pork chop in.
And
They don't wanna do it.
people would be past that sign. You want it when people are sitting there waiting to make their merge onto Campus Drive to be able to see the sign. They'll have driven
Fine,
past it by
then
then.
have Damon build the pork chop. It's fine.
Or we, for lack of sounding like a broken record, just move it back 4 feet. I mean, really, move it back 4 feet. Right?
Move the existing sign back 4 feet to put it on Damon
wherever-
property from where it is, and then we would continue to hold and till the fall semester starts to see if the problem persists at the start of the fall season again, if the two-way traffic returns. If it does return at that point, then we would bring this item back before the board again with the recommendation of the installation of the pork chop or the conversion of the street to two-way traffic. I would be hesitant to, I like the idea of the pork chop for the current street configuration, but I also would say I'm not necessarily in favor of the street configuration. So if you put the pork chop in and then turn the street to two-way traffic, then you're taking the pork chop out.
It's kind of like one or the other. If you make it two-way, you don't need the pork chop.
I would rather see the street turn to two-way traffic than the pork chop go in. Is my point.
Can't have your pork chop anything.
That's exactly right. So what do we do? What do we vote on? Just, I'll vote on to wait and see?
So I believe just all in favor of holding the item till the fall semester. Well, we would receive and file the item at this point based on the work that's been done. And then should the issue be brought back to our attention by the residents, the university, student body, somebody, once the fall semester starts, that this issue is again persisting, they would put a new business back on the agenda. We would have the history from this event, this episode from our minutes to refer to as reference. And at that point, we would then take the considerations at that time of the pork chop or the conversion to two-way traffic. So at this point, the motion would be to receive and file based on the work that's already been completed.
Does the sign have to be relocated now? Get it off of the town?
Yes, that's already been addressed, and
Okay.
Bill will
Yeah.
follow back up to make sure that it's in compliance.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Bill, is there any type of sign permit that's necessary?
I'd have to check Gary in our office and Dessler do permits for signage. I could run it by them and ask. I'm not sure if that would be a sign permit. That's not necessarily.
So
Does
we'll
it-
refer- we'll
does it
refer
have a
to
Damon
the
logo
building
on it?
department for- Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so that Damon's subject to a coordinated sign plan that's approved through the planning department. So my recommendation would be to take any advertising for the college off the sign, and thus we wouldn't require an amendment to the approved sign plan.
If we just removed our logo completely, the same standard and street sign, that would suffice. We could leave the sign in the same place.
You'd have to conform to the MUTCD standards.
Yeah, a black sign is not within the manual of uniform traffic control devices. So the sign that Dan showed, no, that won't work. Size, colors, I'll work with you after,
Okay, I'll talk offline, and I'll make sure that it's right the way it needs to be done.
Yep.
No problem.
So we'll refer that to building and Chris to make sure that the sign that's put up is code compliant.
And there's 3 signs. There's 3 signs in the plan.
Okay.
But there was only an issue with one, correct?
I don't know, I can review them all with you.
I don't know.
Okay. Any further action that you need, Chris, or are we good?
No, we're good.
That will close item A. With that, there's 2 other individuals that are signed in this evening. They're saying that they are not here to speak. Is that correct? Got it. You're all set. Okay, so with that, we will move to the new business section of the agenda. We only had 1 agenda item this evening, so with that, I'll open it up to the board. Is there any discussion of any other new items that need to be brought before the attention of the board? With none being heard, we will close the new business section and we will move to the old business section again this evening, somehow, some way, both new and old. We only have 1 agenda item under old business. Is there any other old business to be discussed from members of the board? None being heard, we will close the old business section and we will, at this point, thank our town liaisons for joining us this evening. And you can go on your way. I've been on this board I don't know how many years now, and I don't think we've ever done this in an hour, so congratulations on your early release tonight. For the gentleman that's here for his merit badge, congratulations to you as well. You picked a great meeting to come to get it done really quick. And with that, we will move to site plans and
Well, let's make sure he gets merit badge requirements. Is there anything else we need to do for the merit badge? Do you need to sign anything that you were here?
okay.
Sometimes we're here until midnight, so be
Yeah,
careful
so
what
be
you wish
careful what you
for.
wish for. You are also more than welcome to stay for the remainder here as we go through the site plans. You're welcome to stay for that as well.
This is actually kind of interesting. This is,
This might be some of the more interesting stuff of the meeting. So
I mean, my daughter's here too. She wanted to come to the meeting, so maybe you guys can like sit in the back there. I gotta talk to Mike. I haven't talked to Mike. Mike, don't go far.
Patrick's gonna be on the board starting next month.
Did you? Look forward to seeing you in June. That's number 10. And then what's your background?
Structural engineer for New York State.
Oh, we need your.
So how are they taking the steel beam out of the bridge on the 33 to put a new steel beam in without taking the bridge down?
Not involved. You know what the irony is what is your specialty?
I want to know that. I still don't understand that bridge on the 33. How that vehicle managed to go under the other bridges is clear, but that was
Oh, was it a backhoe that hit it?
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
No.
For those sky jacks. The lift jacks? Because it was laying on the side of the road, and it was going
Okay.
up the 33, and there's like 4 bridges.
So
there,
they
and it
did
missed
that
the
there?
first 2 and hit the 3rd one. So
Oh.
it must have like it must have come loose on the trailer and gone up while it was driving, or if it crushed the other bridge or something on the bottom to lift it. But it nailed that bridge.
I'll send you the video of the triple interchange in Chickamauga, West Seneca, there where the Thruway Authority bridge got hit the upper level and hit by a backhoe that was on the 2nd level. Oh, it's where the 90 and 190 come together in Chickamauga. It's a triple interchange, 3 high. Yeah, I'll send you a video of that if I can find it. You want to know how it gets replaced?
If you drive the 33, the Dodge Road overpass,
Yeah.
it twisted the steel beam. Like pretty impressive what it did to that beam.
Heat them up and straighten them out. Heat them up, straighten them out. That's quite a process.
Well, they have the new beam sitting on top of the road. It looks like they're cutting the old beam out somehow.
Is that the new beam or is that a beam holding the bridge?
That's the new beam that's sitting on top of the bridge right now.
Yeah, but usually that's how you support it.
The
Work
bridge
it
is
in.
closed right now. They dropped the bridge.
It's a bitch to tear that out of the slab.
No, it's interesting. I drive home and I've been.
I'll send you this. You'll get a kick out of it.
Where did Chris go?
Nice.
Come on, we can do it at 8:30. Do we only have the one?
No.
Do we have big stuff on the one or no?
No, we haven't gotten revised plans from Costco yet.
So that's not going to be for the planning board this month?
No.
Obviously not be done on the
So they're working towards different solutions along Northeast Lead and just what they want to do and how they want to fund it. So until I think they figure that out, they're not going to move forward with it. I see it being go away.
So they will not have it pulled.
We're still being recorded too. So,
I didn't hear. We're going to do the site plans now. Yeah.
We do this all first.
Yeah.
The Main Street building.
Is that made in Young's?
I got it.
Right here.
Correct. Yes. That's the raised island. So it's up on the screen. So this is only if for rezoning. So this plan in front of you is conceptual in nature. This obviously will change as we get further through the process. This is what they presented to us as their conceptual plan. So Chris wanted me to explain a little bit to you about the intent of the TI zoning. As you can probably guess from what I just described, it is encouraging a mixed uses. The mixed use districts that we adopted focus a little bit less on what would be considered Euclidean zoning and more towards form-based, which is focusing on the design of the building and its aesthetic fit into the character of these neighborhoods than it does with separating uses by use and buffering them from each other. So that's overall in planning, we'll see that more and more across the United States. But that's kind of the towns dive into this type of zone. So this is 4 stories. This is 4 stories, yes. So that's something that we won't look at in the site plan. Just because the building is subject to change. So we're looking at maybe, I look at this and we've got connection to this. It's got a gate, it's got an access, legal access. I see some opportunities to connect these two tops and the rear. So people can get out from Forest. There's a road that goes up. That's accurate. So I don't, initially there's going to be some firefighting concerns with this as to how a truck can get in and out of there if it's sufficiently fight a fire. That is probably going to require them to have some sort of either full access closer to this main portion of the building. Well, I don't know if that's going to be sufficient enough for fire or not, but we're trying to explore, I guess, any connection that makes logical sense. So if it's to the north at the top, or if it's to the east or west here, west back there, the more access we can get to the site without trying to just funnel cars through the Main Street curb cut is going to be kind of good for the site. Yeah, it is just a private driveway, or I guess part of the parking lot, but acts really as a driveway. So, I mean, I would encourage you guys to recommend that we incorporate that into the concept. That is how that's Wendy's. So we'll say